I was very fortunate in 2006, 2007 to be in a program developed by the Central West CMA. I think it's the only one in Australia called Farming Systems. And they actually gave us 20 days of training in all aspects of everything, and over 12 months, and we were paid to attend. And at the end of it, we had to submit a project of what we wanted to do on natural landscape function and what we wanted to do on the farm. When we started out, we set out to record everything. I'd come from a background in performance recording software in agribusiness. We could actually track and plan and move accordingly. Then we've added the observant telemetry system. We're a producer demonstration site for that. So that's monitoring water supply, tanks. That's saved us a huge amount of time. And that set of storage for 1 month, I can actually go to a camera. So that's today at 6 o'clock this morning. That's the last photo that was taken. So it saves us 2 hours a day on a water run. And it's also preempts a lot of management. So we can know, yep, well, we've got to go over there because we'll need to start a pump or to do something. So when we're there, we can do something else. I was desperately ill after I had a heart attack in 2004. And after the medical profession had had a run at me for 15 months, I went to a naturopath and she said, I can cure you in 3 months, and she did it in 2. And it came back to mineralisation. Why I was so ill was I was completely demineralised. And I said, well, where do we get these minerals from? She said, your food. And I said, but we eat well, everything's good. She said, there's nothing in it anymore. I said, well, where does your mineralisation come from? And he said, your soil. So our whole focus since 2005 has been on soil health. And the biggest part of soil health for us is carbon. As soon as you start storing carbon, you start holding water, you start your microbial activity, you start nutrient releases and everything else. So ploughing is not an option for us. It releases 50% of your organic carbon in the first pass. And we've actually lifted our soil carbon enormously here by pretty close to 3%.
Native, yeah.
Okay, there's a bit of soft brome.
Okay.
If you look down in here, a bit of clover, I think. Oh no, there's a thistle. So there's our weed.
The weed there's a sickly little thing.
So, and here's some clover, narrow-leaf clover, I think that is.
Yeah.
Yep, so it's all in, and if once again you open it up, there's the habitat for all of that recycling to happen.
Yep.
So
as soon as you get a shower rain, it's going to go much faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's again, here's the hole. Here's the roughness that we're looking for. To catch and hold water. Here this becomes the seed bed.
And that's the cattle imprint.
Yep. The little area to the right of us here now that we're looking at, that's what it was like in March 2007. 2006 was probably our worst year. So we dry sowed it in March just with a bit of oats, and no herbicides, no fertiliser, and just let it sit. And when it rained on the long weekend in June, up come the oats. Now that oat crop, we managed to get 2 grazers out of it, and then we actually stripped 1/2 tonne to the acre. So it's not a big deal dollar-wise, but it's low risk. So there's been no rainfall here of, that you'd call good rainfall for close to 3 months, probably the end of July. We had a little bit in October, first week in October, about 7 or 8 mils, and that's been it. So this system's functioning, it's flourishing, it's just pumping carbon back into the soil. The carbon's holding our water for us. It's allowing these plants to continue to grow. It's just a win-win situation, and the longer it goes, the better it gets. And the biggest issue is that we don't interfere with it, but just gently and quickly run over this landscape with our livestock. Hit it hard, get out and let it rest and let it recover. So we started, as I said earlier, in 2006, and this was a 10-month-old calf that we sent to Sydney. We sent 2 down with the local school, and we got a 1st and a 3rd on the hoof, and we got a 7th and a 22nd over 84 carcasses across all breeds on the hook. But the amazing part of him was his 71% meat yield. And you can see the growth rates that we're getting. We have been able to achieve 3 kilos a head a day at times under the system. These are some of the freaks that we get. This fellow was 400 kilos at 7 months of age. This fellow here we had in 2010. I think the biggest challenge that we face is that it's a natural system, and it's so hard to try and put a reductionist matrix, if you like, on a natural system. Far better results have occurred actually when we haven't fiddled or meddled in it. So I've always said the limiting factor here is me in this whole system. If anything, you probably find that the views of departments of ag and governments, etc., are behind the times, and that's more frustrating than anything else. Like when you have a weed inspector coming and spraying your roads for weeds, and you say, well, what are you doing? Not much point, because you know it's going to be back next year. But really, it's no great difficulty to comply and to actually enhance what we're doing. So I think this is a classic example of how a fence line makes such a difference in management. This is an area that's been locked up, had no animal impact, is not managed, actively managed. And what have we got? We've got weeds, we've got saffron thistle, we've got Patterson's curse, we've got a huge infestation of St John's wort here. This is a fence line where it's actively managed with animals, with a slasher, with whatever. So increase your soil health, get it turning over, get it recycling, use animals, use whatever tools you can to get it happening, as against that where you lock it up and leave it. You can't lock up country and leave it. It doesn't work. This has been managed with chemicals to try and control it, and it's to of no effect. Albert Einstein had a great little saying about the definition of insanity, and it was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So why do we continually try and treat an issue with chemicals when it's only, and nothing changes? We need to start thinking differently about how we manage our landscapes. The only chemical we've used is a little bit of Roundup on some boxthorn that's here and there, in watercourses and stuff like that. Other than that, we don't use anything. I can show you some paddocks later on that we called cottonbush paddock because that's all that was in it. It was purple when we inherited the place. There's a few cottonbush plants left, and I haven't seen Patterson's curse in the place in about 5 or 6 years. So as your soil health increases and your carbon gets better, you don't get weeds. Dr. Arden Anderson's got a lot of work on that. High carbon soils, you don't get weeds. So it's coming back here, and you can see this cottonbush, which was predominant through the whole paddock, is all starting to die. This is a classic example of what weeds do. They all have this big taproot to bring up subsoil minerals, exudate them at the surface. They provide protection, and it lets you get your new species going. So in here, for example, wonderful example of it, here's a multitude of different species. We've got this narrow leaf, I couldn't tell you what they are. We've got a big beautiful broad leaf, it might even be oats. So where it's come from, who knows. But it's providing that habitat, and it's allowing all this other recruitment to happen in underneath it. And it's dead. So there's this continual cycle of, as you improve your soil health, the species become more palatable, the soils become healthier, and it's just a win-win. It's a spiralling upwards cycle instead of a downward. I've been known to question what is a weed, and I've asked people to define what is a weed. Everyone talks about a weed, but I still don't know what a weed is. I actually believe that every plant has a purpose within its ecosystem, and so my definition of a weed is it's a plant that's perfectly adapted to the environment that's been created for it. So this was a dry and sized gully that we had ran all the way back up through that tree line and down through here, and all we did was just increase the dam bank down here to push the water back up. There was an existing dam, but it's created a wonderful area, and the key to it, I think, is actually leaving the dead trees, as you can see. wonderful habitat. We have a whole host of different species of birds. We've got 24 pairs of nesting superb parrot have come back in here. They come and go, but they're back here nesting. We had king parrot for the first time back here beginning of this year. Some galahs up the top there. There's ducks all over the place. There's some herons and cranes. But even the dead timber and the edge of it is creating habitat for organisms within the watercourse. Not only that, it's rehydrating back in. You can see the greenness in the paddocks, and what we've done is we've slashed here on top of it. So you can use machinery within the system as well as your animals. Animals are a lot cheaper, but sometimes they don't do the job quite the way you wanted them to do it. So this is an area that we've slashed, just trying to knock all the top stuff off and to get it recycling. We're actually a licensed property under Land for Wildlife, so I believe the last count was over 43 species of birds. We've got wombat we've never seen before appeared this year. We've got goanna, we've got echidna. We have 2 different sorts of wallabies. We have the grey kangaroo, and of course we've got the fox. He's probably the worst one that we have problems with. We have three pairs of nesting wedge-tails. We feel that the bigger the biodiversity, the bigger number of species, regardless of plants or animals, the more resilience we're building into it. We've actually got a lot of exotic species in places where we've never planted them. So for example, lucerne, you know how well it grows on the sides of roads. Well, we're now getting it in paddocks where it's never been. Our livestock are moving it for us. We've specifically used livestock to move beneficial species of native grasses, as in warrego grass or Paspalinium constrictum, and a few others, being able to graze them for set time and then move them on to where we want it. So once again, you can see through all of this, this is where a lot of nutrients get dropped from the whole landscape. This is a catchment area that runs right back up to the skyline. It all comes down, it's all funneled through here, so when we get a lot of rain, all of your stuff gets spread and dropped, and you can see we've got some boxthorn, we've got some thistle, but we've also got a huge rehydration area, and it's all green. This is now the middle of, or first week in November, second week in November. No rain for however long, we're hoping to get some, but everything's green in here, and we've got some really high palatability species in here. There's a lot of paspalum, there's a lot of box grass, there's a lot of warrego summer grass, so we can move that with our livestock and our animals. We can take the seed, put them in here and graze it for a couple of hours, get them full on it, on the seed, because they'll go for it first, they love it, and then go and take them and place them in the landscape for a day or two till the seed goes through their system. It's deposited with its own little nutrient bank, and it'll sit there, and when the conditions are right, it'll come up. So we've spread desirable species that way. We've actively managed our livestock to do our planting for us. We're only here for a short time. As Dr. Fred Provenza says, we haven't seen continents drift apart. Or ice ages. Yeah, we're only a blink of an eye. So our practices here, we've loosely termed CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's not that for us, but it is in some ways. It's about bringing this land back to life. But for us, it's conservation, it's production, and it's also rehabilitation. And we've actually set aside areas specifically for conservation. Integrated into all of that is the need for animal impact and for animals within the landscape. And I believe quite sincerely that you can't do it by locking it up. You actually need those animals in there. You can achieve results far quicker when you've got the animals in those areas. We're actually a licensed property under Land for Wildlife. So I believe the last count was over 43 species of birds. We've got wombat we've never seen before appeared this year. We've got goanna, we've got echidna. We have 2 different sorts of wallabies. We have the grey kangaroo. And of course we've got the fox. He's probably the worst one that we have problems with. The rest are not really an issue. We have three pairs of nesting wedge-tails. We feel that the bigger the biodiversity, the bigger number of species, regardless of plants or animals, the more resilience we're building into it.